Hey there, garden lovers! Spring is just around the corner, and you know what that means. It's time to start thinking about your garden. But hold on a second, before you rush out to buy every plant you can find, let's take a step back and think this through. This year, we're going to do something special. We're going to create a garden layout that's not just beautiful, but also functional, space-efficient, and designed to make the most out of the sunlight you have. Whether you've got a sprawling backyard or a small balcony, this video is for you. You don't need a massive space to create a stunning garden that you'll love spending time in. In fact, smaller gardens can be even more fun to plan. They give you the chance to get creative with how you use your space. By the end of this video, you'll have all the tips and tricks to optimize your garden layout, from arranging your plants to maximizing sunlight. Let's dive right in, because creating a spring garden that flourishes starts with the right layout. So let's talk about space. Most of us don't have endless amounts of room to spread out. But that doesn't mean you can't make your garden look bigger and more beautiful. One of the first steps in creating a garden layout that works is understanding how to use every inch of your space efficiently. Have you ever looked at your garden and thought, this space could be used way better? Well, it's time to change that. We're going to show you how to make the most out of even the smallest spaces. With a few simple strategies, you can create a lush, vibrant garden that feels expansive and inviting. Next, we're going to talk about the one thing every garden needs: sunlight. Sunlight is what makes plants grow, and it's also the secret ingredient to making your garden thrive. The truth is, not all plants need the same amount of sunlight. Some love basking in full sunlight, while others thrive in shade or partial sunlight. So, before we jump into planting, it's crucial to understand where the sun hits your garden throughout the day. And if you're dealing with limited sunlight, don't worry. We've got a few tricks up our sleeve to work around that too. You'll be surprised by how little changes can have a big impact on your garden's growth. But wait, it's not just about sunlight and space. The layout itself is a game changer. A well-thought-out layout can completely transform the vibe of your garden. Imagine stepping into a garden that flows beautifully, where each plant has its own space, and everything is organized in a way that makes it easy to maintain. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, it's easier than you think. Whether you're aiming for a cozy and intimate vibe or something more expansive, we'll show you how to design your layout so it not only looks great but also makes sense for how you want to use the space. And let's not forget about how fun this process can be. Gardening isn't just about growing plants. It's about creating something beautiful with your own hands. There's no feeling like watching your garden come to life as your plants start to bloom, and knowing that all your hard work and planning have paid off. Plus, creating a garden layout is one of the most satisfying ways to engage with nature. It's a rewarding experience that brings you closer to the outdoors and gives you a space to unwind and relax. So grab your notebook or open up your garden planning app, because we're going to help you map out a space that works for you. From maximizing your square footage to finding the perfect spots for your plants based on sunlight, this is going to be the most fun and creative garden planning you've ever done. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll have everything you need to design the perfect spring garden layout that works for your space and your lifestyle. Let's get those garden dreams going. Now that you're excited and ready to dive into creating your dream spring garden, the first step is understanding your space. I know it might sound basic, but this is crucial. Knowing the size, shape, and features of your garden will set the foundation for everything that comes next. Trust me, it's a game changer when you take the time to really think about how your garden fits into your available space. The first thing you'll want to do is take a good look at your garden. If you have a smaller space like a balcony, terrace, or small backyard, the layout will need to be more compact and intentional. But if you've got a large, open area, there's a bit more flexibility in terms of how you design it. Regardless of your garden size, it's important to get a clear understanding of how much space you're working with. I recommend measuring your garden area, even if you have a rough estimate, because it'll make a huge difference when you're planning where to put things. Start by drawing a simple sketch of your garden. No need for perfection here. Just a rough outline of the space. Label key areas like walkways, any large trees, existing plants, and garden structures, if you have them. You don't need to be a professional landscaper to make this work. Just get those dimensions down so you know what you're working with. If you're dealing with irregularly shaped spaces, maybe you've got some nooks and crannies or a weirdly shaped yard, don't stress. It might seem challenging at first, but this is where creativity comes in. We're going to make these odd shapes work in your favor. Think about how you can make use of every single corner. It's all about making smart use of available space, whether that's by creating cozy corners using vertical gardening, or planting curved paths that soften those awkward edges. Another important aspect to consider is any existing features in your garden, like trees, fences, or buildings. For example, large trees might create shaded areas that limit the types of plants you can grow in those spots. On the flip side, trees can provide shelter from the wind or privacy, which can be a huge plus. You don't want to remove a beautiful tree just because it's blocking some sunlight. Instead, plan your garden layout around it. Some plants will thrive in the dappled light that comes through the leaves, while others will enjoy the sunny spots on the other side. If you have any existing garden structures like sheds, patios, or fences, these will also impact the way your garden is arranged. Is your shed in the corner creating a hidden space? Great. That can become a little garden nook with some comfy seating or a storage area for your tools. Are there any fences or walls? Consider these areas for adding climbing plants like ivy or roses. Vertical gardening like adding trellises or hanging baskets can help you make use of vertical space, especially if your ground space is limited. Don't forget about paths and walkways. You'll want to leave enough space for yourself to move around the garden comfortably. Paths not only guide people through the space, but also help to define the different zones of your garden. If you want your garden to have a sense of flow, think about how people will walk through it and create pathways that lead them from one area to another. Finally, think about what you want out of your garden. Are you looking for a peaceful retreat to unwind and relax? Or do you need a space that's perfect for outdoor entertaining? Are you hoping to grow vegetables and herbs, or do you want a space full of flowers and shrubs? Understanding the function of your garden is key to knowing how to lay it out in a way that makes the most sense for you. A garden layout should always reflect how you plan to use the space, so take a moment to think about the atmosphere you want to create. Now that we have a clear understanding of your space, it's time to focus on one of the most important factors for creating a successful garden: sunlight. Sunlight is the key to healthy plants, and knowing how to make the most of it can really make a huge difference in how your garden grows. But don't worry, we're not just going to leave it at make sure your plants get sunlight. In this section, we'll break it down into easy-to-understand steps so you can maximize sunlight for every plant in your garden. First things first. Not all plants need the same amount of sunlight. Some plants love to bask in full sun all day, while others thrive in the shade or need just a little bit of sun. So, understanding the sunlight requirements of the plants you want to grow is key to making sure they flourish. But how do you figure out how much sun your garden actually gets? The best way to start is by observing your garden at different times of the day. For a few days, track where sunlight hits your garden and for how long. The amount of sunlight can change depending on the time of year, the weather, and even nearby buildings or trees that might cast shadows. So take note. Does your garden get sunlight in the morning or only in the afternoon? Does the sun hit certain spots for hours or just briefly in the early evening? Once you know how the sunlight moves through your garden, it's time to start planning where to put your plants. Sun-loving plants like tomatoes, peppers, sunflowers, and most herbs will do best in areas where they get 6 to 8 hours of full sun a day. These plants need direct sunlight to thrive, so placing them in the sunniest spots of your garden is crucial. If you have areas where the sun hits for several hours in the middle of the day, those are perfect spots for your sun-loving plants. But what if your garden doesn't have a lot of sunlight? Don't worry, there are plenty of options for shade-loving plants that will still thrive in less direct light. Plants like ferns, hostas, and some types of hydrangeas actually prefer a little shade and will struggle in full sun. For these plants, look for spots that get dappled sunlight like under trees or near structures that block the harsh midday sun. Another great trick is to use your vertical space to optimize sunlight. If you have tall fences or walls, you can take advantage of them by growing climbing plants, like vines or roses, that will grow up and get plenty of sun at the top, while still providing coverage to the lower areas that might not get as much light. Trellises, arbors, and garden arches can add dimension to your space while also helping climbing plants reach for the sun. If you have a shaded garden area but still want to grow a variety of plants, consider using a combination of sunlight zones. A great strategy is to group plants by their sunlight needs. For instance, place sun-loving plants in the areas that get the most sunlight, and put the shade-loving plants in spots that get partial or dappled sunlight. You can also use taller plants like shrubs or trees to create shade for plants that need less sun. By layering plants based on their sunlight preferences, you'll create a beautiful and thriving garden with different textures and depths. A little extra tip for maximizing sunlight? Consider adding reflective materials to your garden. Mirrors, light-colored walls, or white gravel can help bounce sunlight into darker areas of your garden, especially in spots that might be shaded for most of the day. This simple trick can help increase the amount of light your plants receive, without needing to change your garden layout completely. Now, what if your garden is dealing with limited sunlight due to surrounding buildings or trees? Don't despair. If sunlight is an issue, you can still make the most of the sunlight you do get. Think about planting in containers or raised garden beds, which can be positioned in the sunniest spots and moved around as needed. Raised beds also give your plants better soil drainage and allow you to control the growing conditions more easily. Finally, keep in mind that garden structures like pergolas, sheds, or even fences can be strategically used to create pockets of shade or sunlight for your plants. For example, a well-placed pergola can offer filtered sunlight to the plants beneath it, while still giving your garden a cozy, shaded vibe. Maximizing sunlight in your garden isn't just about placing plants in sunny spots. It's about being intentional with where you put them, understanding their needs, and using your space creatively. By observing how sunlight moves through your garden, selecting plants based on sunlight preferences, and using some clever strategies like vertical gardening or reflective surfaces, you'll be able to create a thriving garden that gets just the right amount of light for each plant to flourish. So whether you're working with full sun, partial sun, or mostly shade, don't be afraid to get creative with your layout. The right combination of sunlight and plant placement can turn your garden into a blooming paradise. Let's move on to the final step: designing a layout that's not only functional but also looks absolutely stunning. Now that we've covered maximizing your space and sunlight, it's time for the fun part: designing your garden layout. This is where all your hard work and planning come together to create a space that's not only functional, but also visually stunning. Whether you're working with a small balcony or a spacious backyard, a well-designed garden layout will help your plants thrive, while also giving you a beautiful area to enjoy all season long. Let's start with a focal point. Every great design needs a focal point, something that draws the eye and sets the tone for the rest of the garden. In your case, this could be a large, beautiful plant or flower bed, a small water feature, or even a charming garden sculpture. It could be as simple as a stunning raised garden bed filled with vibrant flowers, or maybe a trellis or pergola with climbing vines that create a dramatic effect. Whatever you choose, make sure it's something that you love and will make the space feel complete. The rest of your garden will naturally flow around this focal point, so think about how it will tie everything together. Once you have your focal point, think about layering. This is one of the best ways to create depth and interest in your garden layout. By layering plants with different heights, textures, and colors, you can make the space feel fuller and more dynamic. Start with tall plants like shrubs, small trees, or vines at the back of the space, especially if you have a rectangular or linear garden. This will help create a backdrop and make your garden feel bigger and more expansive. For example, tall sunflowers, hydrangeas, or lavender can create a beautiful backdrop while also filling up the upper parts of the space. Next, use medium-height plants in the middle of the garden. These can be flowers or small shrubs that complement the taller plants behind them. Think about adding colorful flowers like daisies, tulips, or marigolds, which will draw attention and add a pop of color. These plants will sit in front of your tall plants, filling in the space and creating a smooth transition between the tall plants and the ground cover. For the front of your garden or the areas closest to where you'll be walking, use shorter plants like ground covers, grasses, or low-growing flowers. These plants help ground the design and create a natural-looking flow from front to back. Plus, they make it easier to walk around and access different parts of your garden. Some good examples for the front row might include creeping thyme, sweet alyssum, or low-growing herbs like basil or oregano. Remember, when layering your plants, also think about texture and color. The mix of colors and textures will help create a visually appealing and balanced look. For example, pairing soft, feathery grasses with bold, vibrant flowers creates a sense of contrast, while using plants with similar textures and colors can give your garden a more cohesive feel. Don't be afraid to experiment with different color schemes. Try blending complementary colors like purple and yellow, or go for a more subtle look with shades of green, white, and pink. Now let's talk about paths and walkways. Having clear paths in your garden isn't just about aesthetics, it's about functionality too. Walkways guide movement through the space, giving structure to your design while also making it easier to maintain your garden. Whether it's a simple stone path, wooden decking, or a winding gravel walkway, a path helps lead you from one section of the garden to another. It also adds a visual element as it breaks up the space and creates a sense of movement. In smaller gardens, think about using curved paths, which create a sense of flow and make the space feel larger. You can even make your path a feature of the garden by using interesting materials like mosaic tiles, wood slices, or recycled bricks to create a unique look. In larger gardens, paths can serve as a way to divide different sections of the garden, like a vegetable garden, flower beds, or a relaxing seating area. Speaking of seating, don't forget to incorporate spaces for relaxation. Your garden should be a place where you can unwind and enjoy nature. So think about adding a bench, hammock, or a small seating area. You can place this near your focal point or in a shady corner where you can enjoy your garden from a different perspective. If you have a larger space, consider creating different seating zones in various parts of the garden, giving you multiple places to enjoy the view. Finally, consider adding garden structures like trellises, arches, or fences. These structures not only add vertical interest and help define different sections of the garden, but they also provide support for climbing plants like roses, beans, or peas. Adding these structures is especially useful in smaller spaces where you want to maximize your vertical space. A trellis covered with climbing ivy can turn a blank wall into a feature, or a garden arch can create a beautiful entrance to your garden. As you design your garden layout, keep in mind the importance of functionality. You don't just want it to look good, It needs to be easy to access, maintain, and use. Plan your layout with pathways that lead to key areas, and think about how you'll water, prune, and care for your plants. Raised garden beds or container gardens are great options for smaller spaces and can make gardening easier on your back. In the end, the key to a successful garden layout is creating a space that feels balanced, functional, and full of personality. By combining layering, thoughtful plant placement, paths, and seating, you'll have a garden that looks amazing and works for you. So, grab your tools, sketch out your ideas, and get ready to transform your garden into a beautiful spring oasis.